Hey, everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Northview Podcast. My name is Sean. I'm one of the pastors here on staff, and I am joined with Pastor Nathan Rector. Nathan, how you doing today?
Doing good, Sean. Thanks, man.
Hey, so I'm noticing on your shirt the sweet Jordan logo brand, which has got me thinking if you could be sponsored by any major sports athletic company, who would you pick?
Yeah, I'd go with Jordan. Yeah, sure. I'm down with that.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
cool. I think, I don't know if I have.
He was the one growing up that I was watching and looking up to.
True. True. I don't think anybody's going for Converse anymore unless you're like an insane bodybuilder. You're not doing Reeboks.
Reebok was always, second class.
Have you ever read Shoe Dog by Phil Knight?
Nope, never have.
All right. Well, we won't go further with that question. Hey, so NFL season's starting this week. Unsolicited, who would you pick to be in the Super Bowl this year?
Not the Chicago Bears. That's what
Well,
I'll tell you. I think, the Chiefs are probably going to be there again. I think
okay.
they've got good odds. They've got a good squad, good nucleus. And I don't know. For some reason, I feel like Drew Brees and the Saints are going to get there to meet them.
Yeah, this is, supposedly Drew Brees' last hurrah, so we'll see. All right, people did not tune in to hear us talk sports, although we could probably talk sports all day long. So we just came out of a pretty amazing weekend. Labor Day weekend is probably not one of those that you would say is amazing in the church calendar. People are away vacationing, but like, what was it for you that made this outdoor service so amazing?
Yeah, typically Labor Day weekend is in that half dozen or so weekends in a calendar year that you take a pretty good sized dip because of that Monday holiday as far as church participation and stuff like that. But this one we kind of felt going in that it might be a little different story just because of COVID, because of people maybe not traveling as much.
Right.
But we just have had, we've been meeting now since late May, but in very, very reduced capacity. And I don't think anybody knew for sure what we could expect or when people might want to start returning. Our first 6 weeks to 8 weeks almost, we didn't have kids.
Right.
So we kind of really thought, maybe when we get kids ministry going back again, that we'd see numbers jump. And they did climb when we got there, but I wouldn't say that they just exploded. And so we just got thinking about outdoor and people's comfort level, maybe with outdoor, and thought it would be a good weekend to try something a little different. So that's exactly what we did. And really, it went great. It was a ton of fun, and we had a great turnout. And I had several people let me know afterward that, man, that was the most that it felt like church since March.
Right.
So it was really good. It was simple, just an outdoor simple service. There wasn't a whole lot of bells and whistles, but I think it was more about being together safely than anything else.
Yeah, no, and I mean, we've been doing church, like you said, we've been doing church since March. I mean, we never stopped doing church, but that community element of all being together was such a great experience.
Yeah.
So you said in your message, and you had I think a punch in the gut kind of statement. That it's been a tough 6 months, and we're not really guaranteed what the next 6 months would look like.
Mm-hmm.
And that was your inspiration to taking us to Psalm 46. So what was your kind of reasoning behind that?
It seemed like this was a good weekend to push pause and do maybe a one-off message that was a little bit different. It was different setup, different morning, and just a message about God is good. He's with us. He's going to carry us through this. Was kind of the original thought process that I had of kind of where I wanted to go, and then Psalm 46 just kind of became the text
Right.
that thought was really based out of. Psalm 62 was another one that I've been thinking through and working on a little bit, but 46 just really kind of took over and became really what I felt like God wanted me to share.
Right.
So I went with that. It's fun to do that every once in a while, is to kind of set a preaching plan aside and say,
Yeah.
hey, I really feel led to share this. And it's a little different type of message because we had everybody in the family there. Attention spans are a little different when you're, outside and in the parking lot. So,
Right.
a lot of factors kind of went into that, but just wanted to try to be able to find a way to communicate a message that would reach into just a very, very broad spectrum of ages,
Right.
and that everybody could understand and take something away from.
Well, we'll definitely talk about Psalm 46, and I heard from a lot of different people, like you did, just how impactful that message was, and how you were really able to find pinpoint areas in our lives that we needed to maybe trust God some more. But I loved how you brought in Second Chronicles 20 and the history behind this psalm. And honestly, I don't think I've read the psalm so many different times, but I don't think I've ever cared to look at the backstory. And so, the king of that time, there's multiple armies coming in to attack him, and then I guess what happened next that really helps make that psalm so meaningful.
Well, I think people of God, more than anything, after initially feeling scared and fearful, which is human and normal, turned their attention to worship and really sought God out, and instead of shaking their fists in frustration and anger, looked backwards at what he'd done in the past, and was able to feel a great sense of peace and confidence about what he was going to do for them in the future. And I just felt like it was a great inspiration for us, in this moment where a lot of things are out of our control, a lot of difficult moments going on, a lot of hardship being faced by a lot of different people. And that idea of just letting go of that which is stressing us out at the
Right.
moment, and really being able to understand and lean into God's strength during this time
Right.
was a message I needed to hear, and I think many others did too.
So Psalm 46 has a key verse, and we'll get to that one in a minute. But as I was reading Second Chronicles 20, one of the verses said, "This battle is not yours, but is God's." Why do you feel like a verse like that is so important for us to hear in this chaotic world that we're living in?
I just think most of us try to operate out of our own strength most days, and we do so in part, maybe for good reasons, because we feel like God's gifted us with the strength, and He's given us the minds to think and the bodies to act and do. But there's certainly limits to what we can do, and there's things that are just totally out of our control. And the psalm just speaks really well to being able to find strength and find hope, not in your own strength or your own reputation or what you can offer to
Right.
fix a situation. Some situations just don't get fixed, at least immediately.
Right.
And so, where's God in the midst of all that? I think there was a lot of different life situations that could really probably connect with that, with the
Right.
truth of that.
So the main verse that you really focused on was out of Psalm 46, and it was refreshing to hear just kind of the depth of that verse, and that it's not just this, verse that we would see on a coffee mug, but that it is something that we can lean into and we can trust what God has said through it. So, what did you learn as you studied this well-known verse?
Yeah, probably my favorite takeaway was just the idea of the Hebrew word for "be still" being to let go or to drop or to slacken. We really kind of zeroed in on that "drop it" idea. That's just a powerful, easily understood phrase
Mm-hmm.
for us. And you just, life, we tend to we carry things, and we grab a hold of that metaphor of holding on to things very
Right.
readily. and so it speaks to our way of life. When we say, hey, there's some things in your life you might need to drop, we all can start thinking of things immediately. That are
Right.
those things. In order, especially when we think about in order to hear from God or to be able to really lean into Him in a moment.
Right. You highlighted three particular things that we should drop: worry, bad rhythms, and striving. When it comes to worry, I mean, is it really that simple? Just that we need to stop? I mean, how would you coach somebody along that is really struggling with worry?
Yeah, I think it's probably for many of us impossible to stop from it having it ever start. But I think we can stop in the sense of we can stop staying in that state of worry. Many of us who are just more naturally worrisome people, the urges or the thought or the initial impulse is just going to show up. But kind of what you do with it as it shows up is going to be so important. First Peter 5:7 talks about casting all your cares, on Him because He cares for you, and that another translation says, you cast all your anxieties on
Mm.
Him. And I think that's a good visual because it's not saying so much don't have the
Right.
anxiety in the first place, but when you have it, throw it throw it to Jesus. Let him have it. And so I think the drop it idea, it follows that line of thinking that you're probably not going to be able to stop it, but
Right.
when you find it in your hands, you can choose to drop it.
Right. So it would be, as simple as a prayer, God, help
Right.
me with this thing that I'm worrying about, and maybe say the exact thing, or maybe journaling and writing out whatever it is to kind of, bring light to the darkness, or, something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to. I mean, prayer is an immediate and effective way of dealing with those anxieties. And you might have to pray that prayer 25 times in a day because that worry shows up
Right.
25 times. I heard it said anything worth worrying about is worth praying about. And so if you can learn to connect the worry to the prayer, I think you're well on your way towards being able um, to move maybe from just being worrisome to sharing legitimate, well-founded concern, but not being controlled by it.
Yeah. And maybe that's the key is, worry doesn't ever necessarily go away, but the controlled nature of what worry can do to us takes us away from what God is wanting to do. And you even said it when we are talking about big problems and we're forgetting about talking about our big God. And I
Right.
think that's a great correlation to that. So you also talked about bad rhythms. How do I know if I have a bad rhythm? And then what
You
do I
know,
do to fix that?
yeah. So busyness is a curse that we all face, and I think in a non-COVID moment, we could just talk specifically about busyness, and we would all feel convicted. I think this moment, and maybe where I was trying to go with that, had to do with the idea that we've all had to face new realities. The term new normal is something that we've used a lot. And some of it was just purely done because of survival. It was just like we didn't think much through it. It just was what we needed to do in the moment. And you make a quick blink adjustment and on you go. But now that adjustment has been going on for multiple months.
Yeah.
And you might still be doing things and running a schedule that's similar to what you were a month ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, and it's fairly unexamined often for us. We don't look at it and go, okay, I made this adjustment, but was this adjustment good? Is this
Right.
adjustment helpful? Is
Mm.
there something I'm personally am a big rhythm person, and trying to find rhythms is always it's always significant for me. We've have as a family we have rhythms that are new, even this school year compared to other school years, just because of COVID. So like the pick up and drop off rhythm that we do with the kids is different than what we used to do. And it takes my day into a different place. I start my day at a different time because of what I'm doing to kind of help there. And it's mainly out of precaution. It's
Right.
just trying to limit bus time and, that kind of thing. That's an adjustment that we felt compelled to make, but it's had a cost on my schedule. It
Yeah.
changes morning up a little bit. That's one little example of being able to say, okay, this we've been doing this, but is it helping, or has it had unintended consequences? Is there something that might need to adjust? I could say the same thing about our evening routines. I could say the same thing about, a lot of different things. And again,
Yeah.
generally speaking, busyness would be something we could always talk about. And
Right.
part of being still and knowing that God is close to us, be still and know that I'm God. Sometimes part of the reason we can't do it is because we're so stinking busy.
Mm.
You can't get a word in edgewise because we don't have time to listen.
Yeah.
So it was kind of the general busyness, but also with a little bit of a tip of the hat towards the idea that, hey, we all had our worlds blown up 6 months ago, and we still might be living in a normal that is not ideal, and maybe there's something that could be explored and changed in that.
Yeah.
It help us connect with God more.
No, I love that. So practically, if I were to write out my schedule, Monday through Friday, this is, my basic rhythms,
Right.
and then evaluate, how can I make a change if I saw one there?
Right. 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 You might say, "Hey, I used to do some time with God in the morning, but now I'm running kids, and I wasn't used to running kids." And so I could use that excuse and say I'm running kids, and that's what I'm doing right now to survive the moment. Or we go, well, that's what I'm going to need to do to survive the moment. So I better make an adjustment to my schedule. I better get up earlier, or I better carve out a time in a different place in my schedule. Those kind of things where we made an adjustment. And again, using picking up the kids as
Yeah.
a simple example, but a rhythm or a routine gets started or changed, possibly because it had to, but then a new rhythm that held on to the old values never gets established. So then the new rhythm without the old values,
Right.
eventually you start to find yourself in a funk, or just not feeling that intimacy with God that you once had, and you can trace sometimes it back to, well, my rhythm stinks. I'm not
Right.
spending time with God, so no wonder I can't hear from Him.
Yeah, no, that's phenomenal. That's a phenomenal point. I would say, maybe bring your spouse into a conversation and evaluate what your life as a family is looking like, or maybe it's bringing in a friend, having a cup of coffee, and saying, "Hey, this is kind of where I'm at, and I feel like I'm missing, time with the Lord, or my family life is, kind of hurting right now," and maybe they can help speak into that. So, no, that's awesome. So, you also talked about striving, and I always kind of thought striving for things was a good thing.
Sure.
So how can that get mixed up where a good thing becomes, almost an idol?
Yeah. I think context is always important, right? And like motives and why we're doing what we're doing. It's probably more when we're trying to accomplish or work out the things that are beyond our strengths, or that are only God's responsibility, or
Mm,
worries that we just can't, no matter how much we think on it, dwell on it, and get twisted up over it. It's really not changing. It's
right.
not affecting anything. So some of that is that idea of striving, where I'm trying to, in my own strength, play God and make everything in life go well. In this particular story that we referenced in Second Chronicles 20, it's the idea of, look, you're not going to win this fight. Like,
Mm,
this is never going to be about your strength. It's never going to be about you coming up with a military strategy to win this
yeah,
thing. And so you can just drop it,
right.
and I'm gonna do my thing, and because I got you. And that's the second part of the verse that we were kind of dwelling on, is like, I am God. This is God speaking. I am God. You're not. I am. So why don't you let me sit in my seat? You sit in your seat, and I'm going to walk you through this.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So, you were talking about, trying to find hope in God because He has us, and taking this 360 approach to to just looking around and looking ahead of us, behind us, to the sides of us. So, what are some practical ways that you have been able to do that in your own life, or that you would help, again, kind of walk us through that path?
I guess some of it has to do with the fact that many times we're only looking in one direction. And sometimes our hope gets extinguished because we're not taking that full look. So, one of the encouragements from that was to make sure you're always looking 360 degrees, because he's present everywhere you look. He is in the past, he is right here in the moment, and he's out in the future. And we have these promises. And so, depending on your situation, a look in one of those three directions may spur you to a place of deeper hope. Um, you might be looking ahead into the future and wondering, I don't know that I can see him very clearly. But we could look backwards in the past and we could say, all right,
Right.
he's there. We can look backwards into the past, and what we don't understand or don't fully comprehend, we can know, well, hey, he's been with me right now. I feel his presence with me right now.
Right.
So, really just trying to be able to think both backward and forward and all around.
Yeah.
Just in the sense of like we understand the difference between three-dimensional and two-dimensional, and so it was a little bit of a faith exercise in that same regard.
Right. No, that's awesome, man. And it really was a cool weekend. And if you missed that weekend, you really, what's cool about COVID, and that sounds weird, but you don't have to miss these experiences, because you can come back and watch online church. The whole service is on demand. And so if you're connecting with some of the things that Nathan's been sharing, and you want to hear the full context, I mean, we would love for you to pop over to our webpage, or you can find us on YouTube, and you're able to experience that same exact service. Nathan, I mean, this has been a phenomenal conversation. Any other thoughts that you would like to add?
No, I echo your thoughts. If you want to hear more, it is online. We recorded our Thursday night service last week, and in case of rain, had it ready to roll. So you won't be seeing us outside; you'll be seeing us inside. But the same message. In fact, I'll give you a little nugget. It's just a little bit longer on Thursday night with a little bit more detail compared to Sunday.
We didn't have to worry about semis going, or
kids wrestling around, and,
right.
and there's just a lot of dynamics that were different Thursday night. So slightly longer and more detailed version of the message on Thursday that you can digest. But from online. But no, it's like he said, it was a great weekend. And I do want to say this, church, because we are going to do this again. And we've got a date on the calendar for September the 27th. We're going to do it in the evening this time. And just a chance to gather up together, a vision and worship night. It's been a while since we've had one of those, about a year since we've had one. And we're excited to share what God's doing and where we're at in this open the door journey, and just all that God has been doing in the midst of all this hardship and trial that has been 2020. There's still so many good things that are coming out of it.
Yeah.
We're just delighted to share that with everyone, and also just for another opportunity to gather outside. We're looking forward to it. We're praying for good weather again, and just think it's going to be great.
Yeah, so as Nathan just said, mark your calendar, September 27th. We would love to see you there at 6 p.m. Bring a lawn chair, bring a friend. It will be an amazing evening of community worshiping and hearing how God, like Nathan said, how God's been moving and how we anticipate his movement in the future. Friends, you are always able to stay connected with us by downloading these podcasts on Apple, iTunes. You can go to Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from. You can also stay connected through YouTube and able to watch these podcasts. You're able to watch our services. And as always, you can go to our webpage, www.northviewchristian.org, and stay connected. Well, friends, we love you. Nathan, thank you so much.
Yep. Thanks, Sean.
All right, guys, have a great week. We'll talk to you soon.